TwoSun Tuesday. Today we have an interesting one because I could have swore that I've actually done a review on this thing, but I guess I just must have mentioned it in several other ones here. This is a NightMorning design, as you can tell by the video description. It's the TS145, and this is a big old giant sheepscliffe. We'll go ahead and call it that. It's got a little tiny notch there, so you can't do a little bit more poking. But, yeah, I would probably call that a little bit more of a sheep's foot than a Wharncliffe. But still, very, very useful knife. Very comfortable in the hand as well. It does have some strange things about it, like this pocket clip, which just looks absolutely bizarre. But it really does a good job of conforming around your knuckles and everything like that. Really makes it super, super comfortable to hold, especially in the fully back saber kind of grip. But you can also choke up on here, and that also doesn't seem to bother me all that much either. So super nice there. This is the D2 blade. As we can see, we have a satin finish on the hollow grind going on here, which is also kind of nice to see because this is just a little bit thinner overall than some of their hollow grinds that end up still being fairly thick behind the edge. If you don't like pivot, the call out pivot colors, you're definitely not going to like these ones. These ones are convex and huge. So that's probably not going to sit super, super well with some folks there. I will go ahead and address the elephant in the room. This is a knife that I generally suggest that somebody look at if they're interested in the TS344 here. And it kind of makes sense why. They both have functionally kind of the same kind of blades going on here. Both of them are hollow ground. This one starts just a little bit higher up, but they're still both the same kind of thickness behind the edge going on there. This is the Mazwan Mokhtar design. Both of these guys came out within about a month of each other. And unfortunately, this guy has had some problems going on with him. With, for one, the very, very deep satin finish that we got going on here continues on the flats, and that really does affect action on the blade. And I've basically tried a lot to force something there to put extra weight on that ceramic bearing to try to carve in a little bit of that, and then got tired of that not working out after hours and hours of playing around with it. So I ended up doing some polishing. You can see some funky kind of lines and stuff like that going on here as I polished all around the darn thing. Doesn't look super nice and uniform, but I did start with Scotch-Brite wheels on a Dremel, and then went to some of the rubber tip polishing stuff, and then finally to some what do you call them? Just the cotton or wool guys there with some jeweler's rouge on there, and that did help the action on this thing a little bit, but it did also bring out some other problems that are kind of going on here. For one, the bearing rings or races on the inside here kind of free spin a little bit, which always makes something feel a little funky. And it's just got some other problems to it, which to me makes me a little sad that they've recently done a new version of this in M390. I haven't, probably won't end up purchasing it because I'm worried that it's going to have the same kind of problems here. But yeah, there we go. So there's that. This one also has the call-out pivot collar, though, but much smaller. So even if you didn't like that, but you still wanted an exact knife, you're not getting away with it with this. It's just the kind of the nature of the beast. Did want to kind of mention that whole thing there with this. However, this one actually does have some lock bar cutout access there, whereas the 344 doesn't at all. Makes that a little bit easier to close. This is a front flipper, as well as being able to use those nice and sharpish fullers for being able to open this guy up. So you do have that one additional way to open it that's super easy. We do have some, well, we'll call it file work, but it's essentially just some milled lines going on the backspacer that does basically extend almost the full length of the knife there. Some of these little guys here along the edge as well kind of act as some larger crenellations. Not super thrilled with the lanyard loop being all exposed on the end. It doesn't hurt ergonomics at all as far as I can see, but if you like to use a knife in a reverse hammer grip or something like that, this is absolutely a detriment. Probably wouldn't be all that difficult to be able to mark and then cut that off with I don't know, a Dremel or whatever else you kind of got laying around for some of that sort of stuff. But hey, it is what it is. And we do have canvas micarta on here. It is some of their newer micarta, so it's not the really weird, funky, almost burlap kind of brown stuff going on there. However, this stuff is a little bit different and kind of earlier before the full formula that they've ended up settling on. So this stuff, fairly highly polished, but because of that, it has a bit of a feeling like I've gotten from some Civivis. In this particular case, I got the Elementum button lock. I've dyed mine purple from the light green that I didn't do to the backspacer, just to have a little bit of a reference and all that sort of stuff. But has that same kind of feeling, even though this does have a little tiny bit more texture. But you can get that texture, that really, really smooth polished stuff out of something like this, the Appalachian Drifter too. But yeah, so what I've said with some other stuff is this kind of feels a bit more like dried Play-Doh, more than it would feel like actual fabric material being made into something or other. So maybe not super, super crazy traction oriented, but the knife ergonomically just locks into the hand. So I don't feel I need to rely a huge amount on the micarta for giving extra gription or anything like that. It's there, and it does help a little bit, but it also doesn't hurt that the pocket clip does take up most of that on this other side here. But because of that, it does make this a sub-frame lock, which makes it much easier, especially for like front flipper deployment, because the pocket clip never, or you yourself afterwards, never really puts any of that extra pressure there. So that works out all right. But yeah, I really, really, really do like this knife quite a bit. We have a very, very acute plunge grind going down there. It doesn't have a sharpening choil after it, but yeah, it doesn't really bother me all that much. And as we can see, kind of looking in here, the stop pin for this is internal to the blade. So if you wanted to cut in one of your own after you've done, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 sharpenings to get you way back up there, then you can do that without having any kind of adverse effect on the lockup or closing and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, as far as like a large Warncliffe, this is probably one of my favorites out of what I have in my collection. Just a really, really well thought out ergonomics for the handle. Really, really works well for me. Like I said, both in that standard position as well as choke back. Pinch grip, also super nice. The hoop doesn't stick out. It follows the curve there, so it doesn't dig into my hand when I have them grip like that, which, hey, a lot of times I will be doing that when I'm opening boxes and stuff like that. And then when I need to go over to the other side, I'll have that more saber grind sort of thing going on there. Action's pretty darn good. We do have a satin finish going on the flats here. It is a little bit more of a, you would call that a horizontal grain for the flats, and then you have the vertical grain for the hollow grind that we got going on here. just a really, really fantastic knife. Let's see, I've covered a couple of those things, like the TS344 and the Micarta. What if we actually get into some sizes and all that sort of stuff? This guy has a 3.5 millimeter blade stock thickness, which still fairly thick, but not quite as thick as the TS344. That's TwoSun standard 3.8 millimeters. So just a little tiny bit thinner there. Let's see, 4.68 ounces. 132.5 grams. So not too bad. Looking on the inside, we don't have much in the way of weight relieving on the inside. However, we do have inlays here, so they are channeled out. They're not just slapped right on top there. So that's where they're getting the weight relieving going on there. 3.57 millimeter or 3.57 inch blade, starting from basically the top of the handle there out to the tip. So all sorts of reach and everything. Don't really feel like you're going to run out of room. However, I suppose if you are back here and you get really zealous into shoving it into something, you can get behind that, and then obviously that flat there isn't going to cut anything, so you can kind of get it stuck. However, this doesn't have much of a drop there, so it's a little bit less egregious than some other ones that'll have an overrun finger choil kind of cut in. So I like that. That's 90.1 millimeters for the blade length there for the metrically inclined folk. And then we got 0.60 inches wide on the handle here, or 15.2 millimeters. So yeah, it's just a whole lot of really, really nice things coming together. I like it quite a bit. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, it's got the call-out pivot collar. A lot of people don't like that. If that's something that would prevent you from buying it, well, then you are either hate watching it or just wish that it was a little bit different. These ones that have the convex thing on there, a little bit more difficult if you wanted to actually modify those and grind that off. You could probably do it, but you do need a slack belt system and slack belt, belt grinding system and all that sort of stuff. And make sure that you have consistent pressure all the time, all the way around. Otherwise, you'll make it look funky, and nobody really wants that. So, let's see. What if we do some blade size comparisons here? Let's start with some Spydercos here. We got the PM2. I don't necessarily think that the Maddox 2XL is probably necessary, but we do have the Endura 4 and the Paramilitary 2 going on here. Let's see, as far as Benchmade goes, well, here's a Griptalion. And we got the 940. Fairly similar as far as blade length between the two of them, anyway. And sure, the bug out, even though this is going to be a little bit smaller. So there we go with that. See, and I got a couple others here. We got the Civivi Elementum, since that seems to be the one of the huge darlings of the industry in the last few years. Here we go. We got the Ontario Rat number 1. That's definitely quite similar in proportions going on there. So, all right. I don't think I have a huge amount else that I really wanted to cover. I think I got basically everything down that I wanted to talk about here. So yeah, we are going to go ahead and pull this thing open. But if you don't necessarily care on all that much about seeing the insides of it, appreciate y'all for stopping by. For the rest of us, though, we're going to take a little bit deeper look. T8 hardware all the way around, just like almost all TwoSuns. There is some exceptions to the rule a little bit. Oh, yeah, I suppose that's something that I didn't necessarily mention earlier. But titanium pocket clip, single mounting point into Micarta. However, all but one edge is actually retained by titanium. So this really I don't have any problems with whatsoever. It is dancing with the devil, or maybe flying a little too close to the sun, but still, it's a sound design that's not going to end up falling apart on you. So there's at least that. Oh, that was one of the Chicago screws falling out. Knock, knock, we coming in. At least that's the intent. Come on, y'all. There we go. So yeah, we got at the inside there. There's the internal stop pin race going on there. Hardened steel insert. Like I said, there's not much in the way of weight relieving going on the inside because that's all done on the outside here. We can see just how deep that ends up going by basically the lock bar relief going on there. There's the back spacer or whatever. No channel for the blade going in there, but it's also fairly safe from getting anywhere near close enough to the blade. So we don't really have any blade wrap sort of things to worry about. And we have just a very, very short little detent wrap. Looks like I got some schmutz on the inside of here. Most likely tape glue, but it is what it is. And this is one of their newer kind of design things here, where the D shape of the pivot actually comes on the show side rather than the lock bar side. Makes things much easier to put back together. Seeing as how you don't really need to line this up with the lock bar side after you've already got the rest of it put on there. So something that I really appreciated that they started doing. I don't know, about a year or so back. But yeah, very much appreciated. And that stop pin on this guy is super, super nice and thick. So no complaints going on with any of that. A lot of times with these bearing races, if they are fairly loose or something like that, I will take, at least in my case, some KPL heavy, some sort of a heavy sort of material to add a little bit of tackiness and friction to it to help the bearings actually roll along it rather than allowing that to spin all sorts of free in there. I suppose you could probably also do it with some sort of adhesive or something like that, but that's just kind of my preferred way to do that. Does help keep the action consistent. As I did mention that the TS145 also has that problem where the bearing races on the inside can free spin, which also doesn't make it feel anywhere near as good when you're trying to drop the blade closed. It just feels like something's wrong, and that's basically what's going on with it. So let's pop these little guys back in here. Not a whole lot going on elsewise. Yeah. All back together, all nice and safe and sound. Ain't no problems going on with the action. Centering's great. Yeah, it's a fantastic knife. I don't really have a whole lot of complaints going on with it. At least it doesn't have TwoSun carved into the pocket clip like some SOGs and stuff like that did back in the day. That large of a pivot collar with the call out, I think might just be a little bit too much. But they haven't done it on very many of them. The smaller ones like this, these don't bother me at all. But of course, they do for some folks. I really do hope that those some folks also really get bothered by the Andrew Demko ones, unless they're specifically looking for something to be I don't know, like a jewelry piece inside the knife community, something that they want to brag about, whereas they might feel ashamed for a TwoSun or something. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But either way, yeah, the pivot collar probably could be a little bit smaller. But overall, yeah, for a large Warncliffe, this thing is quite nice, and I'm glad to have it in my collection. But all right, that's basically everything I wanted to cover. So as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. Yo. Love it, have a script, please.